Call the Zoning Board of Adjustments regular meeting for February 25th, 2016 to order. And if we can have a roll call, please.
Member Amanda Reed,
Here.
Member Bonnie Leach,
Here.
Chair Richard LaRochelle,
Here.
Member Cindy Foster,
Here.
and Member Susie Barrett.
Here.
May I have a quorum?
All right, thank you. And board members, you all have received a copy of the minutes, and have you had a chance to read it? And if so, do we have any additions, deletions, or? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's done. All right, our public hearing for tonight, the first case, Z-16-002, has been withdrawn by the applicant. So, has that been scheduled for another date, or?
No, it's been withdrawn.
Okay. So then we'll move on to, I'm sorry?
They're gonna comply with the ordinance.
Oh, good. It's nice to hear.
Wow.
Okay, then we'll move down to number B, which is case number Z-16-003. And if staff can give us a report, please.
Good evening, board members. This is a public hearing and to consider a request for a variance to sections 3.3-2B1 to allow new residents to encroach up to 5 feet into the required 25-foot front setback in the R2 single-family and two-family district at 937 River Terrace. This is an aerial of the property. The subject property is currently vacant and a residential lot within the Anderson Rapids subdivision, which was recently platted in 2013 along the Guadalupe River. Approximately 80% of the property is within the floodway or 1% annual chance floodplain that is shown on this map here. The applicant is proposing to construct a two-story new dwelling, approximately 3,000 square feet in size, with a 20-foot front setback rather than the required 25 feet. The applicant has indicated that the requested variance allows for the development of the lot with a home that is constructed with an additional 5 feet of distance between it and the river. And the applicant has noted that during a flooding event, there will be less risk for property damage. A site plan was submitted, as you see before you on the screens, with the application indicating the location of the proposed dwelling that's in compliance with the setback requirements. Site plan shows that the house is located approximately 10 feet from the floodplain and about 315 feet from the actual river. The variance would not actually be required to construct the building as it has been submitted. So what they would be requesting would be to move the house a little bit closer to River Terrace, which would provide about 15 feet of distance between the rear of the house and the floodplain, as opposed to 10, which is what the site plan is currently showing. With regard to authorizing a variance from the regulations, the Zoning Board of Adjustment is to find the following facts. Number one, that there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved, such that the strict application of the provisions of the zoning chapter would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. The applicant has noted that the variance request for this riverfront lot would give additional space between the residents and the river in the event of a flood. Staff believes there are no special circumstances or conditions that affect the land in this case. The proposed residence is able to be built completely outside of the floodplain, as evidenced by the submitted plans. Number two, that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right of the applicant. The applicant state the variance is necessary to prevent possible flood damage. However, the submitted site plan again demonstrates that the desired home can be constructed outside of the floodplain. Number three, that the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to other property within the area. The granting of this variance is unlikely to be detrimental. A 5-foot encroachment should not create a visibility obstruction for other properties. However, moving the garage forward only could make up for the 5-foot distance being requested and would also be in compliance with the zoning code. So that could allow them some additional flexibility in the design of the house to move the garage forward up to that 20 foot from the front property line. Number 4, granting the variance will not have the effect of preventing the orderly use of other land within the area in accordance with the provisions of the zoning chapter. The variance should not prevent orderly use of other land in the area. However, other properties will be required to construct by the current development standards, and the existing building envelope can accommodate the proposed building. Number 5, that an undue hardship exists. The applicants state that they will face a higher risk of flood damage with the house closer to the river. As evidenced by the submitted site plan, there is sufficient building envelope, again, to accommodate the dwelling. And number 6, that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the spirit and purpose of these regulations. The purpose of the front setback is to provide open space, allow off-street parking, and maintain consistency along the street frontage. A variance shall not be granted to relieve a self-created or personal hardship, nor based solely on economic gain or loss, nor shall it permit any person the privilege in developing a parcel of land not permitted by Chapter 144 in other places of land in the particular, two other places of parcels of land, in the particular zoning district. No variance may be granted which results in undue hardship upon another parcel of land. With respect to other cases that the board has considered, there have been 2 considered recently, 1 denied and 1 approved. And then notification was sent out to everyone located within 200 feet, and we received 2 responses in favor of the variance request. This is a photo of the undeveloped subject property. If there's any questions for staff, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any members have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question about how you determine a floodplain. So let's say in the 1972, 1998, and 2002 floods, do you know what the history of this piece of land was? In other words, did it go
inundated?
past the
Right.
100? Yeah.
I did not have that information available. I can say that the 100-year floodplain is what has been determined by federal regulations that has a 1% chance of having a flood annually.
Right.
But whether or not this property has been flooded before up to the point of where they're locating this parcel, this improvements, I do not know.
Yeah, you see, a 1% chance is different from drawing a line saying that this is as far as the water will go.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Okay, any other questions?
And of course, the other element to that is nobody really knows how high the water can ever get. It's
Right,
certainly-
exactly, which is why I was wondering about the recent history.
Do we know if,
And if I may, I can't remember the exact date, but I recall is that the floodplain maps, the Corps did update our floodplain maps in the not-too-distant past. And so that was all reflective of data they had redone. And the Corps is the one, the FEMA does those maps. And, we show the 1%, most of the cities under the 0.5% chance of flooding. So that's when it comes down to, if the dam breaks, we're all going to be experiencing water.
Right, but I do remember the house closer to the river floating down and being on the national news. So that's why I was wondering about if we knew about the recent history. I think that was the 98 flood that
I
happened.
can also tell you that a lot of the properties that have been purchased by the city that are now public lands are much further down the river.
Oh, yeah. I just meant that, and it was much closer, okay? But I just meant that, so you think that the Corps of Engineers might have taken those events into consideration?
I'm not an engineer, don't get me fib, I'm not even a certified floodplain manager or any of those events. I just know that my limited knowledge of when they do is they're looking all the past stuff, and so when they map this out, they're basing it on events,
Okay, right.
and so.
Do we know if in this neighborhood, in the recent, meaning last 5 years, any of these houses have incurred any damage from flooding?
I'm not aware of any of that.
Okay.
I can tell you, the one shown here, 945, was, I actually believe it's still under construction, was being built when the aerials were taken in 2000, and sometime last year. And this subdivision, I believe, includes these 4 lots, the Anderson Rapids. So those were, within the last 3 to 4 years, have just been subdivided.
How much, is this a new subdivision? So if we granted the variance for this one, is it likely that somebody else who wants to build is going to ask for it, and then somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else? Is it already pretty much built?
This is
There's
a
just quite a few
4-lot
lots,
subdivision that this property is in. I believe it is either the first or second house that's being developed in this subdivision.
Right. So 951 is, I know that 937, because I saw that, is still, 933 is still vacant, but is 951, because I counted back a couple of houses.
Yeah.
I think 941 has a house on it now, but I don't remember one on 951.
Yeah, as of
Okay,
probably about 6 months ago, it was still.
all right, great. And I don't remember a house on there, okay?
Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you very much. All right, I'd like to call the applicant or agent for this address to please come forward, give us your name and address, please. Welcome.
Hello, Elizabeth, 937 Terrace. I'm the one asking to get the 5-foot variance. Just to answer your question, 951, Julie Quigley, that I've never met, they actually responded. They said they favor, and they're the ones that said, I'm sure they need the setback.
I know that.
Okay.
But my question
Is your
have they
house on
built
there?
their house?
Okay, so I do know we're 937. I know 945, I believe 951 is currently either 951 or 975. There's a house being built here right now.
Yeah, there are 2 houses being built very close to yours, but I don't.
And
don't rem-
925 is definitely being built. That's
Right, but I don't remember 951, that's all. I remember 941, right next to you. And I know that 933 on the other side of you is not built yet.
951 is then, because they're right next to the big house that's already like almost finished, that's made out of cement. There's one that just came up like in a couple months ago. That one, so yeah, that one's almost at completion, or at least they have the beams up and they're in there. So one of the reasons we're asking for the variance, just because also the curb, we noticed that we kind of realized when that last rain happened, and I don't think we're really expecting a flood, our backyard gets the brunt end of it. In fact, we realized we can't really do much with it. So with that one, which we weren't even expecting a major flooding, we saw our backyard kind of turn into a river. So we're just trying to get as close, far away as we possibly can, just so that if there is a flood, we give ourselves as much space between us and the river. And we did consider potentially moving a portion of our house with the garage 5 feet forward, but the other problem is the other side of the house would still be 5 feet back. So we would still need that variance either way. So that is why I am here.
Any members have a question here? All right,
Oh, I do.
okay.
I'm sorry. Why a magic 5 feet? If it's, if you're already 10 feet from the floodplain, what is the magic of 5 more feet?
5 feet is what they told me that you guys would be at least willing to consider. I mean, if I could, I'd be as close to the front as I possibly could, but people said 5 feet is a safe number that won't be laughed at, so.
And then that's the magic.
That's the magic, is your approval. So, I mean, if I could, I'd ask for more, but they said don't get stingy. 5 feet's usually the norm.
I walked the property, you've got some high land on the back of your property back there that's gonna block you from that river. That river's not gonna come around that and come back up to you unless we're all underwater. You're in a pretty good location, really. The bottom of your land is not, but your house and where you're gonna be at, just from someone that lives on the Guadalupe up the way from you, you're on the high side, you're gonna be okay where you're at. But you've got high property over there as you go down from that house next door. That's gonna block that water from cutting straight into you. It's gonna tend to go around your property. It will come up, but not close to where your house is gonna be. You're gonna be all right, short of a dam breaking.
Well, I hope so, but I mean, it's one of those things, your house is your most expensive purchase you ever make. It's one of those that if I can try to, whether it's an extra 3 or 4 or 5 feet, I mean, those extra 5 feet when the water rises is gonna make a huge difference in whether I'm living back with my parents or, you know, being able to say like we survived it. So for us, it's every foot, I mean, just to protect us from that river flooding, because we got to see firsthand just with rain, how aggressive Mother Nature can be, how cruel it can be.
You know, that there are a couple of houses, very, very, it looks to me, very nice houses being built close to you. And they have not asked for a variance.
Yes. They are actually, if you look at our houses, their houses are actually a lot wider. So they're able to build a much wider house. Because our lot is so narrow, it restricts us from building out. Like,
But they have also built back significantly. I mean, their house is much, as far as I could tell, is going to be much larger as far as area is concerned. And,
huge white
and they have gone back pretty far. I was really surprised at how far they had gone back.
yes. I mean, the only thing I can say from there is because their lot is so much wider, like 925, they're the ones building, and then 951 that are building. Their lot is, I mean, if you go to our lot is extremely narrow.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how far back they have built the
Okay.
back of their house. Pretty far back.
I mean, it's for me, it's just, I err on the side of caution. I'd rather just be safe than sorry and later on down the road if there's another major flood or if there's catastrophe that hits. We're just trying to build as close and take ourselves as much out of harm's way as we possibly can, because this is gonna be the biggest investment that my husband and I ever make. So we're just trying to make sure we protect it as much as we can.
I think that's kind of the chance you take, anybody has when they build on the Lander River there. And I have to agree with Bonnie there. I went out there and took a look and up and down there, and there's that one huge White House that they're doing there. It's a monster, and I don't know. I still think you got a pretty good buffer there, and so I just having a hard time. I mean, that's just a chance you're taking when you build along the river like that.
So I have a question, because there's a house that, when I was looking at the paperwork, there was a house on our street that got approved for a 5-foot variance. What was the difference, or what differentiated theirs?
Whenever that address, I wouldn't have the slightest idea what happened at that hearing.
Right,
Okay.
because I don't remember a variance on that street at all, on your street at all.
Okay.
We're on the board in 2003.
Oh, yeah,
2003.
2003. Oh, sorry.
It's been many years,
yeah.
years back. I can reassure you, just though, because I appreciate your concern, and we have a house on the river, and we've watched it for 10 years now. And you have a reason to be concerned, but you're in a good location, and you chose wisely, because you've got high property on the other side of you to block you from that water, and it'll help you a whole lot. So you're gonna be okay. I appreciate your concern, but you're in a good location. You've got a good lot.
And here's another thing we have to consider. So for instance, one of the people who favored your application has not built yet. And they're right beside you, and they've got a narrow lot too. And if we grant your variance, there's no way we could probably deny their variance. And because there's so many unbuilt houses, this is something we really have to watch against. To set up a precedent where, in order to be fair, we have to continue to grant variances.
I feel like I'm getting a no.
Well, we haven't voted yet.
Yeah. Okay, do you have anything else you want to say? or-
I mean, I can understand. I will tell you that with us building our house, whether it's 5 foot or 20 feet or 25 feet, I mean, we're gonna make sure that we build a house that looks nice. I hope when you're thinking about it, that 5 foot for us is just that peace of mind. Because we do have such a narrow house, I mean, we have such a minimal horizontal plane and then if we want to build, our only choice is to build back at this point. Like, we can only build forward. So that's the biggest part is, when you're looking at it and, you're in a position where you're trying to make sure that you keep up with the beauty of New Braunfels and make sure that people aren't going against and building things that would hurt the neighbors or the property values. I mean, what we're asking for is just 5 feet more of just peace of mind so that what we do build, we can live in there forever. So in case there is another flood like there was in the 1980s or anything that goes down, at least we have, and I know you say 5 feet, magic number, but I mean, every foot when there's water coming up and it's rushing into your house, every foot makes a difference at that point.
Any other questions? All right, if you want to just step aside, I'm going to have to ask you, is there anybody in the audience that want to come forward and speak in favor of this? Please come forward and give us your name and address, please.
My name
Welcome.
is Linda Marshall. I live at 2412 Becker. I came here for that hearing, but since I was employed on the Wimberley Flood Disaster Team this past summer, I just am open to any questions you might have about experiences that people had in the flood, both here and in San Marcos. Even just a few inches of water coming into a home, I was so surprised that would have her back at her parents because you have to tear out all of the plasterboard, even just for a few inches at the bottom. Do you have any questions for me?
Anybody? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that want to come and speak in favor? All right, is there anybody in the audience that want to come up and speak in opposition to it? All right, I don't see anybody. Since we had one person talk, we have to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to do so?
So move.
Second.
A second. All right, motion second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of that, to close it, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, board members, we have the variance application in front of us, and do we have a motion to approve as written? Okay, there was no motion, so that automatically fails as far as that goes, for lack of a motion there, so. Do we need to take another vote or not? No. And so with that, I'm sorry, the motion failed to pass, so, thank you. All right, next case on the agenda is Z-16-004. If the staff would come forward, please.
Board members, this is a public hearing to consider a variance to sections 5.31B and 5.32H to not require a masonry wall and landscape buffer along the northeast property line of a proposed commercial development addressed at 2475 IH 35 South. And the subject property is located at the intersection of Interstate 35 and Schmidt Avenue. It's currently two separate parcels that will be replatted before development. I would just point out that the replat will correct the boundary line that looks like it takes in the street, in case you were wondering. There is an existing office building here on a separate tract, and it has no direct driveway to the frontage road. The only access to that office building is through the existing driveway on the subject property that comes in here. There's a row of houses behind, a billboard right about there. This is the National Guard Armory, and the city owns a strip of land right here. It's about 100 feet wide. The zoning ordinance requires a masonry wall and a tree buffer where commercial development is adjacent to residential use or zoning. The applicant will provide the masonry wall and buffer along the houses here as required in the zoning ordinance, but is requesting these variances to not have to put them along the city-owned property line. Although there are no houses on that property, the masonry wall plus 11 trees are still required due to the R2 zoning. City staff has actually discussed rezoning the property since residential use is unlikely there. If the zoning were not residential, the masonry wall and tree buffer would not be required. But the city doesn't have immediate plans for that property, so an appropriate zoning has not been determined yet. This is a preliminary site plan for a proposed convenience store. The driveway currently provides access in and out of the office building, but it stops right at the billboard there. The applicant wants to extend the driveway beyond the billboard to provide access into the new development. This driveway would accommodate traffic making the U-turn here that would otherwise miss the main entrance to the property and allow them to access the store using that existing driveway. Space between the billboard and the property line is about 15 feet. It's even less on this side. The proposed driveway will be 12 feet wide, but it's estimated that the masonry wall plus a minimum 5-foot landscape buffer would take at least 6 feet, leaving only 9 feet for the driveway. New off-premise signs are not allowed by the city's sign ordinance. And if the billboard were removed, it could not be relocated or replaced, even to move it over just a few feet. The first criteria for approving a variance is a special condition affecting the land that deprives the applicant of its reasonable use. In this case, the applicant cites the irregular shape of the lot, limited space between an existing billboard and the property line, and the location of the U-turn on the frontage as special conditions. And although the adjacent zoning is residential, there are no residential uses existing or planned on that city property. Second is the variance necessary to preserve a substantial property right. And the applicant states it is necessary to accommodate an extension of the existing driveway and to maintain the billboard. Next, granting the variance should not be detrimental to the public or other property in the area, nor should it prevent orderly use of other property in the area. The buffer will be provided along the residential properties as required. As an undue hardship, the applicant states the existing driveway could not be used to access the property without a variance. And if the billboard were removed to accommodate the driveway, it could not be replaced or relocated. And finally, is the variance in harmony with the spirit and purpose of the regulation, which is to protect residential property from the noise and light from commercial use while providing a visual screen. And again, future residential use on the property is unlikely. The applicant adds that granting the variance and allowing extension of that driveway will enhance overall access to the development. We notified 22 property owners within 200 feet, received 2 in favor, numbers 1 and 19, which both own multiple properties. We received no responses in objection. Have any questions of staff?
Yeah, can you put the picture back showing the driveway with the billboard there? Yeah. Now, where exactly are we talking about where that driveway is going to go so they can get into the property back there, right over there?
Right here.
So it's actually going to go onto that, there is 12 feet there, enough room?
There's about 15 feet, right, between the property
Okay.
line and the pole.
Who owns the billboard?
I do not know who owns that. Do you know? It was put up in 2002. I
Okay.
know that.
Yeah, if you please come forward, give us your name and address.
I apologize. My name's Roger Durden. I'm the agent for the owner. I'm
You
not
just
sure.
touch the screen, it'll do whatever.
So can you go back to the 2 lots? Right there. So the regular shaped lot here, you see the very thin, looks like a flag right there.
Yeah,
That's all one piece of property, and that billboard is part of that property. So it's
Okay.
owned by that property.
So the owner of this property owns the
Yes.
billboard? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I guess the other question I would have, if it's given, you're talking about 15 feet wide there with
Yes,
that
sir.
billboard. Are you gonna be having trucks coming through there, or
No,
what?
sir, it won't be able to accommodate trucks. And so, as you come off of, can you go forward, please? That picture. So, as you can see, it's a full width driveway. I'd say it's about 25, maybe 30 feet there. As you go back, we had an Alta survey done, so professional surveyor came in and did the closure of both properties. And he also picked up the diameter, the center, and the edges of that billboard. And we also checked the height of the billboard to make sure that we could get through and underneath there. And so from the property line, in the very back of that picture, you can see a fence post. And that fence post, so that's the fence post right there. So if you were to project that down, it's kind of an orthotic type view. So, but there's 15 feet there from the outside edge of the pole to the property line.
Okay, good.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
The pole, if the billboard can't be moved, can they get a variance to move it, or is that just not allowed at all? Okay. No. And my second question is that there is another entrance going to be to this place, right? The main entrance on the other side?
Yeah, there'll be an entrance right here,
Yeah, I can see it.
and then there'll be another entrance down here on Schmidt.
Okay. So then, my question is that to have this variance is solely for economic reasons then, so that you could have another way to get in and out of there?
Not necessarily an economic reason, that could be one of the byproducts of it, but they can still, people that are coming southbound can come around here and still get into the site there. It also will diversify where everybody comes into the property, so that we don't have everybody coming into one or two entrances.
But the billboard could be removed.
It could, but then we're taking away one of the assets or rights of the land. It's
Which-
part of the land itself.
It's really hard.
it's just an income for the property owner. I mean, it could be moved if they wanted to move it, right?
But we couldn't replace it. So if you're farming crops, and crops are part of the land, that's what you make your livelihood or what you use to feed yourself, that's part of, I'm not an attorney, I'm just an engineer, but that's part of that asset to that tract.
It's very, very hard to do.
Yeah, and I know one time I had to go into the summit there before, office building there,
Yes, sir.
and I missed the driveway. You had to go all the way down and come all the way around the other
Yeah.
way, their backside there, so. All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. You got anything else you want to add?
No, sir, I hope y'all move
All right,
to
well, thank
approve the
you.
variance. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask, is there anybody in the audience that want to come and speak in favor of this? All right, is there anybody in the audience that want to speak in opposition of this? You do? Okay, please come forward and give us your name and address, please.
Linda Marshall at 2412 Becker. I have a question about the entrance. Are you saying,
Just touch it.
back to the site plan? No, go back to the one that was originally on there. Yeah. So I believe, Holly, that you were saying that they're going to come up the side, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, now get rid of the pink so I can see, okay. Do you know that, if you haven't had a chance to go look at that site, there's a steep grade right there? Do you think is that, I guess you thought about this, it's gonna be safe for people to be trying to go in and out on that grade?
All right, come on,
Yeah.
speak into the microphone, please.
That's a very good question. We're going to be required to stay within less than a 14% grade to get in there, which is typical what you do with roadways. And so we're going to have to bring the site down in order for it to accommodate that driveway. So there will have to be some elevation changes. This entire site, even that driveway right here is rather steep, and we'll have to bring the site down so that that one will work as well.
I do have more.
Well, come back up here.
There's a 6 to 8 foot option for the wall that goes behind the homes, is that correct? Are we already on a downgrade from that commercial property at this point? In other words, the commercial property is higher than where the homes are sitting now by a few feet? Is that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, well, in my observations from my backyard, when I look toward the commercial property, it's going up. So I don't really understand whether it's up to the land developer to choose whether they put in 6 or 8, but you can see how if they're already uphill and they choose 6 feet, we might be looking at a dumpster or, you know, I don't know what they have planned in the back, but it might be a good idea.
I guess if I can add clarification, is
Yeah.
obviously what's before the board tonight is, that wall is not before them this evening.
You will
Their
have a
only-
wall.
their only
You're gonna get
jurisdiction
that.
You will have a wall.
Is
And
the wall
trees.
on the side.
Okay,
And
so the 6 to 8 feet is just set in stone, and we're not talking about that. I
That's
understand. I
right.
wasn't
Right.
sure.
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Well, let me move on then to the side. When I'm standing here, I get stereo sound of I-35 because it bends around us a little bit. So, as far as a sound barrier, if you take away all these trees, you're gonna lose that sound buffer. And if you also don't put up a masonry wall, it's gonna exponentially increase the amount of sound that we're gonna be getting on this street.
I guess let me clarify, is first, they're required to put in a 6 to 8 foot tall masonry wall there, and they've acknowledged that, and they're gonna put it in. The 6 to 8 foot range, it's there to the developer's choice.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm on this side now, on the northeast side, which concerns the variance.
Well, and so, okay, so I just want to clarify that one, but, so they have, so there will be a wall on that one blocking that, but the vegetation, because it is commercial property, the city does have tree replacement requirements, and so if they're going to remove any trees that are significant or heritage, they're going to have to address it. They can't just clear out all the trees. They'd have to replace 50% of any trees they remove, because it's commercial property.
Oh.
So we do have tree preservation requirements that they're going to have to address.
So does someone go in and mark which trees are not to be cut down?
They have to identify any trees that meet heritage, and Holly, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's minimum of 8 inches. So they have to identify all the hardwood trees, basically, that are 8 inches or larger. And so it's more like your pecans and your oaks, not hackberries or the cedars,
Okay.
don't have that restriction.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would turn out. We may still end up losing a lot of the non-heritage trees that still do provide a sound barrier.
But,
in that
and the city
area.
doesn't have any criteria or standards regarding sound, so that's also not something the board can be addressing this evening.
Okay, all right.
But all these questions and concerns, I'm not trying to say that they're not good, but we can talk with staff and getting more, of what citizen concerns are, and we can keep tabulate and keep council abreast of what issues are coming up. And I'll put a plug in here for our comprehensive plan process. They'll be coming up and working with the community, identifying what issues and concerns they would like addressed in the future.
Okay. What about safety and health? Does that play into this? Because I had a couple
Well,
of concerns
it's-
about that.
You can ask, what they're viewing tonight is whether to require to allow them to get a variance to not construct the 6 to 8 foot wall and put in the landscaping along this line. That's their only purview this evening.
Okay, but I have more
But if you,
concerns.
yes,
about that. I'll try to make it quick. So as far as leaving this open over here, we do have this open space that belongs to the city that kind of adds to the ambiance and safety of our neighborhood, our residential neighborhood. And I feel like if you open that up more and grant a variance, it could affect our safety. It could affect, you can see on the picture, there's sort of a dirt area that looks like a road. Sometimes people get confused and think they want to drive through there. And it really wasn't meant to be driven on, and I have a concern about that as well. It makes a quick entry exit for a possible burglar to go through that field. And I feel like not granting the variance would give us more safety and privacy to our neighborhood. Also, the north wind comes from this side of the property, and if you don't have a wall there, we may get gas fumes or fumes from the dumpster blown through here toward the homes. And that was really all the concerns that I had.
I'm sorry, you said a dumpster?
I guess a convenience store would have to have a dumpster someplace. I don't know where it's gonna be placed.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, to answer, I think your question there, of public safety and all that kind of stuff, when I went out and looked at this location, I drove out there on my truck and everything else like that. If anybody's gonna wanna use that thing, they can come in there almost any different direction. There's a number of locations they can come to, including the street where all these houses are on. You know, there's no barrier there or anything else like that. In fact, there was a truck out there, doing some kind of shrub, cutting back the shrubs back over there to the houses on the other side of the street there. So, you know, and as far as the sound goes, you know, I know some people that live even further than that from the 35, and I can still hear this 35, okay?
Yeah, I live half a block from here, and I can hear 35 all the time.
Exactly. So that's not gonna, you know, that's wishful dreaming as far as that goes. But some of your concerns are, you know, there, but I think the majority of it is not there. And if somebody's up and down that place, that dirt area there and all that kind of stuff, and they're disturbing your peace, then I would suggest you call the police department and say that they're disturbing your peace there, you know.
Yeah, my neighbor's been living here for 3 years here in this last house, and she did have a conversation with the man in the road department. I can't remember his name right now, I'm sorry. And he asked her if maybe we should chain off that open city property so that people aren't driving through there and she doesn't have to call the police every few months as she does. And at that point, she said, I'm not really sure, because she didn't know how the neighbors felt, but it could be that that's something that we ought to try to ask for.
That's probably something you should probably bring up to the traffic commission they have or something like that here at the city.
I recommend is contacting the engineering office.
Right.
And either the transportation engineer, Carl, or the city engineer, Gary, can assist her in giving her the right direction.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea, so. All right, anything else?
No, thank you
All
very much.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else out in the audience that want to come and speak in opposition to this? All right, with that, do we have a motion then to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, board members.
I have a question for
yes.
staff. Can you expound just a little bit more on why the city doesn't want to go ahead and make a change so that we don't have to do an exception?
That's what I was gonna bring up.
Thank you.
Yes, it didn't, the discussion really didn't come up until this variance request came in. We have met with the capital programs manager, our real estate manager. No one has a clear plan for that property. We wouldn't want to go through the process of putting zoning on it that's not appropriate for the future use. So
And I
until we
don't know
can,
what's involved in that, so I wasn't sure what was up against changing it and then possibly changing it again later versus us
Exactly.
giving an exception that we might rather not have to give. But I'm just
Right.
curious, because I don't understand how that works.
And,
So-
well, and the direction would have to come from council as
see.
to direct staff to make, to initiate a zone change. And so, basically, I think it was time, you know, that's a political process and a conversation has to happen. And I think the applicant didn't want to wait because there is no timeline on how long it would take for, to get to council, to have them make that decision, what they want to do, and then go through the public hearing process. That's an unknown timeline.
And a
So
lot
not-
more complicated than a variance.
Right.
So not knowing what they're going to do with that, we might be adverse to go ahead and give an exception to this because it might be that we need that wall there at another time when we don't know what's going to take place there.
I guess what Holly had already had stated is that from staff's opinion, we have the armory. The armory's right here, and the armory's not going anywhere. And so the likelihood that this area will actually be developed for residential, the city would have to sell it for anyone to build that, and it just seems unlikely that we would see residential. The future land use plan is
residential.
still residential.
Okay.
But again, and these type of things too, is a second plug for our comprehensive plan process. We'll be looking at our future land use plan and what would be more appropriate generalized land uses for all the land within the city, and this would be one of those, if it really is appropriate to be residential or not. At this point, staff's perspective is that it's not.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything else?
Any other questions? All right, members, we have the applicant in front of us. Do we have a motion to approve as submitted?
I move that we grant the variance.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? All right, is there any other discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, there's 4 yeas and 1 no, so.
2 noes.
2? You voted no? Oh, okay, I'll correct myself then. There's 3 yeas and 2 noes. So public hearing's closed. So the applicant has, the application has failed. So, sorry. Thank you for your time, so. All right, board members, there's no other thing other than on the agenda here where it says discuss. I'm sorry? Okay, we're not gonna do the discussion there on the one there
That's what she's moving to.
after the adjournment, or?
No, no,
No, I was gonna brought that up, that we wanted to do the discussion here, so.
yes.
Okay.
I think
So,
overall planning.
item number 5, we wanted to discuss this.
Well, it's not, want to give you just some more information as opposed to just, here, there it is, it's on the agenda, capital improvements program update. Holly gave you all a postcard, announcement of the public input survey that the city is conducting. Just a little information background on the capital improvement plan, otherwise affectionately known to as the CIP. And it's a council-adopted program. It basically prioritizes short, medium, and long-range projects. And a little bit examples of what a CIP project typically is. They can be repairs to existing streets, facilities, parks, drainage. They typically are, $100,000 or more in cost to do it. The projects, where these ideas and the projects can come from for CIPs, come from master plans, the comprehensive plan, a variety of projects. The last update we did was in 2012. We should be updating this every 3 years. And so what the council has asked staff to do is, obviously there's outreach to the public to give their input. They also want to hear from all our boards and commissions. You are one of the city boards. And so this is, tonight is giving you, put on your thinking caps and be thinking about it. We'll put it back on the agenda for your next meeting in March to see if collectively as a group you have any suggestions or recommendations for projects to be put on the list for consideration. And what we want to do is, again, keep the term that was used with me is the universe of projects. So don't hold yourself back in thinking of ideas for the next agenda. And also you have the card, you as individuals and your family members are also encouraged to go ahead and take that survey.
Yes.
So everyone does that. So that's kind of like just outline the steps of where we're going is we're in that receiving the public input part right now, including recommendations from boards and commissions. We're doing public meetings, online survey, and then staff is going to analyze all the projects that are identified and put them in a list. And then a second survey is going to be sent out with a list of all the culled projects. Council's going to review that in April, and they're going to do a project prioritization in May. And then there'll be public hearings and a project selection in June. And then they're going to identify which of the short and mid-range projects that we can afford. So that's it, kind of summation. If you have like any quick questions or.
What's the kitty look like?
The kid, I think at this point there's like, you don't limit yourself by how much it's going to cost. Some of the best projects, it might be, I don't want to gather, I guess, a type of project, but it might be, it's a really good project, that there's no way we can take that whole elephant in one time, so it might be parceled out in little projects, short, medium, and so don't worry about that part, I think, is more of the idea, is from what your perspective as a board and as residents and members of the community, what do you see is needed for the community? And then let staff and help, figure out, can we, are these achievable? How much are they gonna cost? And, yeah, don't worry,
think it's a
don't
real
limit
good-
yourself.
It's a real good idea, and the survey's really interesting if you've not done it. It's pretty cool. That's neat.
I have a question. Is this, when we give our input as the zoning board, does it have to have something to do with zoning? Or, like as an individual, if I want them to take care of the drainage on Denise Drive or something like that, that would be something different than this, right?
Not necessarily. I think where they're hitting all the boards and commissions and asking each one to do it, because theoretically, y'all see a certain set of, projects and styles, and so it may trigger, you'll have different viewpoints than other boards. And so you might be thinking, because you've seen so many requests regarding, drainage or, because setbacks from a drainage, that, man, if the city did a big drainage project to improve this, we wouldn't see so many variance requests, you think? And so it's that kind of specialty of the boards that might lead to unique projects, but that doesn't limit you either. If you guys, hear about drainage, concerns, even though that isn't necessarily your specialty or where you guys, doesn't prohibit you from throwing some ideas in there. Again, don't bind yourself by any,
Your position on the board.
yeah. Or money, or any of those things.
Oh, boy.
The sky's the limit, just put it on there now. Will we doing, annexing anything on the moon? Probably not, that's kind of on the table, but don't limit yourself, is all we try to encourage you.
I just like involving the community. I think it's a good idea. The more we involve the community, the more the people feel like they're involved and they know what they're doing, or they know where to go or how to go there. We've helped ourselves a lot right there, so.
When you're part of the process, you understand it better, and so you may have a better understanding why something is or isn't chosen too as well, so definitely, it's always better to be a part of it. Being a
Awesome.
victim.
All right. Thank you very much for the information.
Thank you.
All right, members, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.